So now let's take a look at KPIs. We've already defined them in an earlier session as key performance indicators, and we took a brief look at what a KPI was in terms of the funnel. But a KPI is a financial, or these are financial and non-financial metrics that are used to help organizations define and measure progress toward their organizational goals. And so we talked about business goals specifically. And so these are measures that help you understand how you are doing against your objectives. So the beating of the heart is a KPI that indicates something about your body, like you're alive. Taking your temperature is an indicator about the health of your body. So you get some ideas of KPIs outside of Google Analytics. And I gave you some other ones here. It could be a percentage of nosocomial infection, or how many inpatients acquire infection inside the hospital, or percentage of people who are paying attention on a webinar. How many people are paying attention, or percentage of people who are paying attention right now. It gives you a wide variety of information, but it has to be tied to your business goal. Remember, a metric is graduated to a KPI when it ties to your business goal. Okay? Otherwise, it's just data noise. So what are some attributes of a great KPI, right? So can everything be KPI? How do I write a good KPI for my business? There are 4 things you need to know about KPIs and what makes them good versus not good. The first thing is that they need to be uncomplex. Think about a 3-year-old and if they can understand them. So going back to our earlier examples, these are pretty easy to get. How many inpatients acquire infection inside the hospital? Okay, we can do that. What's the percentage of people who are paying attention on the webinar? Okay, we can get that. It's very simple. It's uncomplex. It doesn't have lots of if, ands, ors, or buts. I can get it. It also has to be relevant. It has to be unique to your business and to each business objective. You can't take my KPIs and apply them to your business. What works for Jack does not necessarily work for Jill. So it has to be relevant to your business and to each business objective. I can't just use the same KPIs for different business objectives. Sometimes it works out that way, but I can't just do it automatically. So think about Best Buy and Circuit City. Right? They both sell electronics, but their online strategy is totally different. If you go to their website, Circuit City wants you to come into the store with in-store pickup. They drive the people to the store. But Best Buy wants to get people to buy online, so their business objectives are different. Therefore, their goals would be different. The KPIs would be different. Their dimensions would be different. Their segments would be different. Everything's going to be different because it all is driven from that business goal. So you can take operations, you can take some ideas from other people, other businesses, but they may or may not be relevant to you. So instead, focus on your business goal and then figure out what your KPIs are. The next thing that they need to be is timely. So they need to be instantaneous. The answer to your KPI needs have to be fast, not 2 months down the road. What's going on now is going to be vastly different than 3 months, 2 weeks, 2 days even sometimes. You have to, it's the principle of ready, fire, aim. Perfection is not always the best. In fact, Avinash talks about perfection being the enemy, right? And so you want to make sure that you're being timely because you can always make changes. Don't let your ego of not wanting to fail, not wanting to have something not work get in the way. You're going to make, and they're not even mistakes, you're just going to put things out there, see what works. Okay, that didn't work, make the change. It's how you're going to get better. If you're trying to be perfect, we had a client that wanted to go and send it to a committee and get it approved at the board level. And 3 months later, they came out with their KPIs, which by then we had other data that showed that those new KPIs were completely irrelevant because things had changed. The last thing of a attribute, or excuse me, the last thing of a KPI attribute that makes them a good KPI is that it's instantly useful. And so it kind of ties into timely, but these are things that I can apply right now. And so showing keywords that are statistically more significant or less significant in a time period. Okay, so then what I can do is I can modify my advertising online using those keywords. I can even, if I really want to get crazy, modify some of the keywords on my website, which is called Search Engine Optimization, SEO. The other thing that you want to think about when we talk about instantly useful is that your senior decision makers should be able to look at KPIs and understand what's being tracked and what's happening without having a full conversation with you. And so when we talk about instantly useful, I can slide a piece of paper across the desk to my boss. My boss looks at it and goes, I get it. Okay, now what do we do? Oh, okay, I understand that too. That's what makes it instantly useful. No meetings, no follow-up, instantly useful. So an example of a KPI would be bounce rate, right? Bounce rate is uncomplex. It's how many people came, puked, and left. It's relevant because we generally don't want people to do that. We want people to stay on our site, purchase or download something or sign up for something. It's timely because bounce rate can be acquired instantaneously. And it's instantly useful. If our bounce rate all of a sudden goes through the roof, we know something's wrong. One of the examples specifically about this is that we were tracking bounce rate, and I had some targets on our bounce rate, and they started pinging at the high end of that target. And so I had an alert that was triggered and sent to me. And I went online and looked, and some of our web links, some of our links on our homepage that we were obviously sending people to were broken. And so people were bouncing because they couldn't get the information that they were looking for. And that generally is one of the reasons why people bounce. So some great KPIs that you can focus on are listed on the screen in front of you. So conversion rates, you can find these on Google Analytics under the conversions section, goals, and then overview. This is how many people, or the rate of people who came on and converted, so they bought something, they did what you wanted them to do. Average order rate, it is one of the most, it's awesome because it's good to know about conversion rate, and average order value can tell you if you're better at selling certain products or not. But this average order rate combines the two. So you can have a 1.4% conversion rate, but your average order rate could be going down the toilet. And so this tells you, are you doing a good job of upselling and cross-selling? It's really just another diagnostic measure. Days in visit to purchase. What's super interesting is Avinash gives an example of a travel agent who, 30% of their customers are buying within the first day or two of hitting their site. But then there's this whole population of people that are purchasing tickets that are visiting their sites over a period of almost a year. And it's what we call the long tail. And they're not the majority, they're not the biggest bulk, but when you add them together, they make up a really big 45% of your population. And so you might want to target them because you're missing out if you're not. Loyalty and recency, so are they coming back? And how soon have they been on your site, or how recently have they been on your site? You can find this under audience and behavior. Task completion rate. So these are things that I have told the website I want people to do. I want them to download a PDF, or I want them to go to sign up for a visit. And so what's the rate that people are completing this? And I should also mention with task completion rate, the average conversion rate, that means the average rate of people purchasing something on your site or doing what you need them to do is about 2%. And so the problem is we become obsessed with this 2% of the population. We can move that, but it's very, very small, small moves. But what about the 98%, right? So this task completion rate, the conversion rate is the end goal, right? The task completion rate are the little things that add up that we call them micro conversions that lead to this macro conversion of them purchasing something. And we need to become more focused on the 98%, right? The 98% that aren't doing it, that aren't converting. Why aren't they converting? Maybe we can develop tasks that would lead them in that path. It's really the answer to the question, were you able to complete the task on the website? And so one of the things we actually do is ask people after they go through our site. You give them a survey and you ask them, could you complete the task on the website? It's as simple as that, right? We ask the customers, and whether it's donating money or downloading something or applying for a job or looking at video. And so you show the survey when they leave, and then we have information. Then we have data. 75% or 74% of the people were actually able to complete the task that they set out on the website to do. And if you don't know what people are doing on your website, and if you're just starting, you can ask people, what were your goal of coming to the website, and were you able to complete it? And so now, not only do you have were they able to complete it, but what were they doing on the site? And that allows you to make modifications to the site in a way that Google Analytics or Yahoo Analytics, ClickTracks can't tell you. iPerceptions is a phenomenal tool that I strongly recommend if you are looking for surveys. They create surveys for free, and so it helps you focus on what you should fix next. So those are the next steps for you. Finally on the list here, we have Share Search. This is using competitive intelligence to understand your website. And so this is what, in marketing, if you're in retail, you're talking about share of shelf. And that's basically what we're talking about here. How much of this shelf do I have? We use Clickstream. What top key websites do I have in search traffic, like Google and Yahoo, etc. And we track it. And so Insights for Google, you can put in different, for example, ThinkPad, Latitude, MacBook Air, etc. And then how, what it tells you is, are people, maybe I'm doing a campaign, keyword campaign, to get people to buy ThinkPad. And what it will do, Google or Insights for Google, will tell me what share of search I have on Google. Now, what's really cool is you can actually go and use this tool on a number of different browsers. So you could look at, what about on Chrome? What about on Explorer? What about et cetera, and you actually, now this is something that Google Analytics won't do, but you can do it in Excel. Then you can look at, okay, here are the keywords that I've paid for. How are they performing on each of the browsers? And what's really cool is you'll find that different browsers, your words will perform differently. And so on Yahoo, I might be spending more money on one keyword and not spending any money on that keyword in Google. Which is also a good point to not forget about the other browsers, because people are still using other browsers, believe it or not. And even more so now. And so we have these KPIs. We've determined what our KPIs are, let's say. Well, I guess we should talk about that. So how do you determine what your KPI is? Well, the first thing, going back to our definition, is asking yourself, why do the site, exist? Why does the site exist? You need to think both macro and micro. And I kind of alluded to macro and micro when we were talking about tasks and conversion rate. But macro is big picture. Macro conversions are like e-commerce conversion rates, right? How many people are buying my stuff? But what about success before the conversion? If you train for a marathon, and maybe, there's those websites you can go on and it's couched to marathon. And, for some people, getting off the couch is a micro conversion, right? Walking every day might be a micro conversion. And then over time, remember we set these, you might want to set, and they can be targets, you might want to set your targets for monthly, quarterly, yearly, right? And so you have these micro things that we want to be celebrating because they're showing that people are doing stuff on our website. And so we want to make sure that we're looking at these, and it's not just focused on the macro, it's focused on other things. You want to also, when you're identifying KPIs, I can't emphasize this, I know we talked about it already, but apply the 4 rules razor, which is the uncomplex. Is it timely? Is it instantly useful? And is it relevant? That's a big piece of this. Yeah. So here's an example of what happens when we just look at KPIs in terms of the data, right? And so I don't have a label for this, but we can assume it's revenue over time, over a few months here. And so, it was okay, and then it seemed to go up, and then it lagged, and then it went back up. Okay, so what? Does this mean anything to you at all? Well, we have ups and downs, but here's the deal, guys. What action can you take from this? Well, you would want to ask yourself, well, what were we doing in January, right? What was happening in January? And I'd probably ask myself, what was happening in like September? Well, oh, it was just seasonal. Like, that's just how our season goes. Well, the deal is, though, is if we can overlay it with segments, it becomes much more useful. Let's take a look. So now we have a chart that talks about how people came to our site, before they bought. And so now we see, okay, so in August, we had a pretty low affiliate marketing revenue driver, right? So they weren't coming to our website and converting from the affiliates. And we go over to January and December, and we say, wait, what happened there? The affiliate marketing went up. And it did again in April and May. Now I can ask some informed questions, right? Because direct really seemed pretty steady. So our SEO, search engine optimization, is working. Or maybe even just our marketing strategies are working because they're typing in our website and going directly there. Pay-per-click, look how small that segment is. And so pay-per-click is when we're paying their advertising dollars, right? And we're really not getting a huge benefit. So I don't know what the revenue is, based looking at this graph, but if I'm spending a lot of money on pay-per-click, I might want to think again. And then you look at YouTube, which remains pretty steady, and then other. So in January, I might ask the question of what else did we do? Maybe we did a big email push in January, and that can really contribute to that number or that size going up. But man, I'll tell you what, if I'm spending a lot of money on my pay-per-click, I might want to consider transferring that money over to the affiliates because they seem, especially if I overlay the amount of money I'm spending on each of these, and I find out that I'm not spending a lot on affiliates, but I'm spending a ton on pay-per-click, I might transfer some of my pay-per-click money to my affiliate marketing because it seems to be having a bigger impact. And so you can see if I hand this to my boss, now the boss has a better storyline that they can tell about the data. Let's look at another one. And so as we're looking here, here's an example of probably not a chart I would use, but it's an example of a chart that you might want to give to your boss. And what's good about this chart is that it gives you information in a very easy way. So you look at number one, and it shows customer satisfaction is at 48%, right? It's at 48% for the month. Number two, well, how is that good? Is that bad? Oh, it's up. Why? Green arrow, right? We have a green arrow and even another little arrow next to it. And it tells us what the percentage is, that it went up 8%. It went up to 8%. Okay, that's good, right? Notice that it's at the top. That's for the executive. They just want to skim the information. They don't have time to dig into the data and ask questions and think about it. They just want to know, how are we doing? So boom, there it is. Then you go down to number three. And what's interesting about this graph is that they put the goal. And when you put the goal, or even the target, it then becomes much more palatable to people because they can see, well, how are we doing in comparison to what we said we wanted to do. Number four, obviously, it shows a trend over time. I always recommend at least 3 months of a trend. I think if you get, some people do these 2-year graphs, and unless you have a specific point to make, it's really hard because, again, we're supposed to be setting our targets, monthly, quarterly, yearly, not, I don't know what you would even call that, every 2 years, right? The other thing that's useful about this graph, and you see it in 5, is that they segment the KPI. They segmented it just like they did in the graph before. So it's segmented to research, shop, buy, and using. In this is, did they use tech support, right? So if they use tech support. We can all agree that the website sucks at helping people get customer service, right? Because obviously their tech support's down here. But hey, if they went on the site for research, they did pretty well at 70%, but it doesn't reach our goal. What's doing really well? When they purchase, right? They purchase, they're having really good customer satisfaction. How would I gather this data? Again, probably an eye perception survey post-visit. Another example, and again, I'm just showing you a bunch of dashboards. This is a very easy to read graph. It gets a little bit more complex. You have a little trend line here, spark line here to show over time. You have green arrows, red arrows, yellow arrows, right? So it becomes very easy to read in a very quick way. But this one, I love this one, and here's why. It's not, again, overly graphically. It's not going to win any graphic design awards, but what it does do is it shows me action steps. So here's what's going on. Here's the impact. Here's the trends and insights in words. And gosh, here's what we're supposed to do. What else could an executive want from them, right? It's all clean and clear. This is when action gets taken. This is when things actually happen. I can march this down to my IT department and show it to them and say, here are the things that need to be done. This is the data person. This is a true analyst. So what are some lessons that you need to remember? Number one, what works for Jack isn't going to work for Jane. What works for somebody else might not work for you. Perfection is the enemy of good enough. So good enough is good enough. You try it, you fail, you change it, you succeed. Or sometimes you try it, you fail, you try it, you fail, you try it, you fail, and then you succeed. But the point is ready, fire, aim. Not ready, aim, aim, aim. You can have paralysis by analysis. Make sure that you're going and doing stuff. Motorola took 9 months to identify key performance indicators. They got beat by the competition. They got crushed by the competition because they were picking their noses for 9 months. Think smart, move fast, refine over time. The web moves too fast to be sitting on a KPI for 9 months. Afinato says, a critical few, baby, critical few. Choose the critical few KPIs that are going to make the biggest impact on your business. 3 at most. 3 at most. For example, gross margin per visitor. If you have too many KPIs, you're going to lose sight of what you're working toward. So whittle them down. Ask yourself, is this the thing that's going to make a big impact on us right now in our business cycle? You also have the metrics lifecycle process, which I'll show you in a second. This is your BFF. This is, you define the metric, you start and measure, you analyze, you take action, you stop, you pause, you don't stop, and then you improve or eliminate the metrics, the KPIs. And so here it is in a pretty little form. I believe that's also in the book. One of the other things that you need to be thinking about, and you've heard some of this terminology, but listen, I need you to commit this to memory because we are going to talk about it a lot, is 3 things called acquisition, behavior, and you'll hear me talk about conversion, the ABCs. Google Analytics uses ABCs, but you'll also hear me talk about ABO, which is outcomes. They're the same. C and O's are the same. It's just different authors, different programs use different words. So acquisition is how do we get traffic in? How do they come to our site? Behavior, what do they do when they get there? And then conversions or outcomes is what happened when they were there, or what happened in terms of the impact on our business. So, behavior, they clicked here, they clicked there, they clicked here. Conversion outcome is what happened that benefited them or our business. Did they convert? Did they buy something? When did they buy something? How much did they buy? Etc. It's what you want them to do. It's measuring what you want them to do. Okay, so a couple things, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but some things that you want to think about are different KPIs for your business. And so you'll see here, you have the small business, the medium-sized business, and the large business. If you, again, critical few, what are the things that you should be looking at? Now listen, the large business needs to do all of these, and all of these, and all of these. Small business, just focus on these 3. okay? And so though we talk about KPIs, three, only having three, large business, if you're not doing anything right now, you start with these three, then you move to these three, then you do these three. So you're building. Small business, it just is not worth doing these big things. Focus on these three, get really good at it. Your business will boom and become a medium-sized business, right? So you want to grow from here to here, from here to here, and then you'll end up doing all of those things. Okay? So I'll just go through these relatively quickly. Cost per acquisition, which is here, that's basically the efficiency to attract traffic and to get them to convert. So how much money did it cost to get them to actually come to our site? Let's see, behavior, bounce rate. This is, are you doing a good job at figuring out if you're targeting the right people, if the people can do what they need to do when they get there. Same thing with checkout abandonment rate, right? So everything that happens really after they add to the cart is so important. And so this is what you want to look for. They fill up their cart, then they're not converting. What's happening? And so you want to be very careful if you ever deal with an e-commerce site. What's happening after that checkout is super important. And then macro conversion rate. This is revenue, average value, unique purchases. These are the things that you've chosen, the macros, and what you want them to do. So you're measuring how often that happens with people visiting your site. In terms of medium-sized businesses, we'll talk about click-through rate as an acquisition metric. This allows people to figure out click-through rate allows people to figure out the click-through rate and unique visitors. So you can go to dimension drill downs under campaign, and this can help you improve copy, targeting options, etc. So how many times are people actually clicking through from an email campaign to your website? Page depth. This is tracking over time to understand if the efforts to improve the website is actually improving the experience. And so how deep are people going into your website? Loyalty. By the way, you can find loyalty under audience, behavior, frequency, and recency. Are you creating increased loyalty? You can really easily segment this too, down to, who's visiting. So you could say for our website, people who visit more than 4 times are considered loyal. And so we can actually segment that and say, okay, we're going to define loyalty as people who visit greater than 4 times. The micro conversion rate, these would be things like sample orders, new website accounts, completed designs, videos watched, selection guides, other downloads, outbound clicks to distributors. These are things that aren't really conversion. So they are conversions, but they're not your macro conversion. They're not purchasing something. They're not buying a car. They're not filling out a sales lead form, but they're doing things that indicate interest. And so these micro conversion rates are important. And it allows you, again, to come back at those people, segment them, come back at them as a group to retarget them. Per visit goal value. This can focus on what sources are sending the highest goal value. We kind of talked about that a little bit with some of the other charts before. How are people coming to your site and what's offering you the biggest bang for your buck, if you will. So here's an example. You can see this is the source. Here's the visits, unique visitors, and here's the per visit goal value and the number of goal completions. So we can see based on the different source how they're impacting our bottom line and our visits. So listen, if you're a large business, you want to do everything that the medium-sized business is doing, everything that the small business is doing, and now you're trying to grow your audience, you want richer engagement, you want more sophisticated media optimization, you want to get better and become better at doing what you need to do so that you can make more money or have better conversions, etc. So the acquisition metric here, KPI, is % of new visits. This helps us grow our audience. So you want to try to get them to stay longer and decrease the abandonment rate, right? And so that's what you're going to focus on. So how many new people are coming, and then you're going to help do those other things. Behavior, so events per visit. What dynamic experiences are you creating? You're spending time on all these experiences. Maybe it's a virtual tour of campus, right? So we're creating these things. are they actually engaging on them? You're creating videos. Are they actually watching them? And are they driving conversions? You can actually build reports that say how many people who watched this particular video ended up doing the macro conversion, or actually converted, buying my product. It will show you that. And then outcome, days to conversion, and assisted percent of assisted conversions. Days to conversion, this is the time lag in days. We kind of talked about that a little bit. This works in both commerce and non-commerce websites. It helps you understand how you can improve your calls to action, how you can create micro conversions to get macro conversions. And then the percentage of assisted conversions, people are exposed, we know this, people are exposed to multiple mediums before a conversion happens. They're not just going to go on your website, look at something, click and say buy. It does happen, but they're probably exposed to other things in the outside universe, maybe of your doing. And so we want to know, well, what's the percentage of the assisted conversion that got them to your website. That allows us to help us optimize our medium spend, right? So if they're all coming to our site because of a billboard buy, it helps us put more money in billboards. They're coming to our site because in converting, because of a radio commercial, we'll put money in radio, right? So it helps us optimize our medium spend. There is a standard report in Google Analytics on this. As long as you have tags implemented, what tags are, right? So if I send out an e-marketing campaign, I have to have a URL that includes the tag, right? And my website has to have the tag. So if we look at an example here, you can see, notice at the top, total conversions, and those that were assisted conversions. More than half were touched by multiple ad experiences before they actually converted. It does not help you to understand the last touch conversation, right? This is what sucks in sales sometimes. People come in and they buy from somebody else because they're standing at the door. Meanwhile, you've worked with them, you've called them, you've driven them around. I don't know, you've really worked with them, and this other person is really the straw that broke the camel's back. And so we don't want to just focus on the fact of that last, that last interaction conversion. It's an important part of it. We certainly don't want to underplay the importance of it, but it's not the only piece. And so it doesn't, but of the 23,721, what you need to know is that 13,483 had come to your website before from the other channels. Though they came to your site from medium one, they were there before. So what are the implications? It's how you're going to create campaigns. It allows me to pour money into organic search. Where are they coming from? How are they getting to my site? So here's another look at the marketing and measurement model, talking about the creating awareness, the generating leads, the highlighting the events, right? And so it's just another look at, here's the goals, here's the KPIs, here's the targets, here's the segments. So again, just another slice of what we've already talked about.